Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, of course, is Jeremy Finestone. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. We have the new beginning in Sapporo is on the way, just in a matter of a few hours. Jeremy, we already have questions pouring in from some of our favorite listeners and viewers here. A lot of things on a lot of people's minds when it comes to these shows. So we'll be looking at a pair of huge shows in Sapporo as the New Beginning Tour reaches its crescendo. We'll also talk a little bit about Fantasticamania. We're going to talk a little bit about the Rev Pro show this past week, which featured some New Japan talent. And it really feels, Jeremy, like the next chapter of New Japan is getting close to kicking into high gear. Could start in just a matter of a few hours.
You mean we're at the season finale, not the season premiere? That's sure what it feels like to me right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to roll through. Colin's here. Colin, glad to see you. We got some questions from Dunstan Williams also that we're going to cover here. And thank you, guys, for getting in some questions even before the show. The fact that we're getting questions before this show even begins or comes on the air shows you a little bit of how fired up people are about this weekend. And then the New Japan Cup, which is soon to follow, the anniversary show. You can tell that there's something in the air. People sense that there's change coming. Of course, there has to be, doesn't there? So it's an interesting period, and I think that the next 2 days are going to give us a good indication of what's to come. Not the whole story. I think that's still hanging on, but we're going to find it. We're going to learn a lot.
If you are in North America and you are an insomniac, Friday night is your night.
Yeah, well, that's very
Friday
true.
night at 9 p.m. Pacific is when the New Beginning of Sapporo show starts. And as soon as it ends, you have the Elimination Chamber. If you're still amped, you're literally running right on through.
That's right. Yeah, the timing of those shows are actually pretty neat, aren't they?
I was double checking that just now, and I was like, son of a bitch, that's a marathon.
Yes, it is. Well, as you can see, I'm all fired up. It's the beginning of soccer season here, MLS season in the United States, starting off this weekend. So I will be there, of course, for my Austin FC, Go Verde, and I'll be ready for that. But we'll have a show when I wake up tomorrow morning, and then who knows? I might put on some coffee and stay up Friday into Saturday.
So in addition to all of those shows, we decided that we are going to have a show on Sunday at our normal time, recapping both of these shows so that you don't have to wait a full week for us to talk about the 2 nights of New Beginning in Sapporo. So at our normal time of 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, we're going to be here for an hour running down all the results and what it means, and perhaps maybe a New Japan Cup lineup, because that seems like that's coming around the corner. And we'll have some finality about the anniversary show and what that lineup is going to be. So check that out. That's part of our YouTube channel at fightgamemedia.com. In addition to Power Bombshells and the Dynamite Show, you can find those shows on our YouTube channel. And then on our audio feed, we have The Wrap. We have the Dynamite Show also there. We have In the Clinch sometimes. We also have the 5-Star Joshi Show. So check out all of those shows and follow us and like and subscribe and all of those spiel. Now, we have a lot of stuff to talk about now that we got that out of the way. See you on Sunday. And Stephen, let's keep on with the show.
Okay, so the week began with Fantasticamania. We had 4 consecutive shows on NJPW World as that tour wrapped up. Now, a lot of these matches were CMLL centric and in a very good way. So we're not going to cover them we're not going to just break down the shows like we do for New Japan ones, just because they are kind of self-contained. A lot of the major matches contain mostly the Mexican talent, and it's not really New Japan's storyline adjacent. So we will talk about some recommendations. We have some. Most of the time, the New Japan guys were Ryusuke Taguchi. He was doing comedy. He had his little it was almost like a little paper mask, a little paper pharaoh mask. They added some sound effects for some of his moves, which is kind of funny. And within the context of Fantasticamania, I'm okay with. Let's not do it too much. Hiroshi Tanahashi was mostly in trio matches as they went along. He didn't goof off or anything, but he didn't do a whole lot of note. He was just kind of in these little mid-card trios. And House of Torture was represented by Kanemaru and Sho, generally doing just their usual heel shtick. At one point, they pretty much abandoned poor Magnus to be beaten in a 6-man tag. But we got those guys. We saw a lot of
Rocky Romero is probably the hardest working guy in New Japan this week.
Yeah, well, and you know what, low key, he is one of the most influential people in this era of professional wrestling.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
I made a huge nerd reference of him being the next generation era of Spock, where he brought all the different people together that no one else could. And so everyone was cooperating with each other. And if it wasn't him and all of his different connections everywhere, none of this would happen. So mock me all you want, but the analogy is true.
No, I just hope this alliance between AEW, New Japan, and CMLL lives long and prospers. So after that, we also had Titan and Bushi. They were there. They teamed up a few times. None of it was particularly noteworthy. They did do a faction tag team tournament, just a 2-night deal. Semifinals one night, finals the next night. It ended up in Chiba. Ultimo Guerrero and Stuka Jr. won that tournament. They beat Bushi and Titan and Nagoya in the semis, and then Volador and Magnus in Chiba. Ultimo Guerrero usually
those
wins.
Matches were a lot of fun.
Those
Little three pack of matches that we got there.
Hiromu Takahashi was Kamai Itachi back in his old outfit. It was a new outfit, but same Kamai Itachi gimmick, but a new gear. And LIJ was mostly on the winning side since they're in big New Japan matches coming up. But they used the guys that have all that experience. So you had, the LIJ guys were Naito and Tsuji, who's been in CMLL. And, they use Doki, of course, has a long and extensive lucha background, as does Desperado. So they use those guys. Shingo was off in England for the Rev Pro show, so he wasn't on most of this tour. And so they mostly use the guys in New Japan that had the lucha experience. I don't know how much Sho and Yo had, a little bit, when they were the Tempura Boys. They were mostly in ROH, though. But and we saw Ruaka and Starlight Kid face La Jarochita and Yuvia. So that was a women's tag match. And that was in Korakuen on the first night, which I believe was the second of a double shot for Ruaka and Starlight. I think they worked a matinee Stardom show and then made the trip.
I thought I had that photo in there. Bummer.
No, that was to Chiba. That was in Chiba. This match was stiff. I mean, Haruchita and Yuvia worked this match like the Stardom girls owed them money. I mean, they beat the crap out of Ruaka and Starlight Kid. So whatever happened, they were going to go back to Mexico without anybody saying that they worked soft. Not that anyone was saying that in the first place. The Mexican women have not been accused of working soft anytime lately. It may have been true a few years ago, but my goodness, they laid those shots in on Ruaka and Starlight. Who can take it, right? But the Mexican women did go over there. The CMLL team did go over on Starlight and Ruaka.
Let me ask you this real quick: what night of the 4 nights did you think was the best night of viewing to watch? So, like if our audience were like, "Hey, I got to pick a night. I'm not going to watch all 4 nights." What night would you say just run through and it's just the best one for you to say? For whatever.
And Colin's asking, what did I think of that Stardom match? I like the match. I mean, Haruchita and Yuvia are very good. So are Ruaka and Starlight. So I did like the match, but it was rough. That was a rough day at the office for Ruaka and Starlight there. But as far as the best show of the thing, I think the 18th probably at Korakuen Hall was my favorite. And here are the matches from there. Doki
I agree with you, by the way.
Doki and Templario versus Soberano and Briante Jr. from Chiba was really good. But on the 18th, you had the Black Cat Memorial match.
Yes.
That was a really good air show. Just people flipping and flying all the way.
One of the best you'll see.
And then it had 2 singles matches to wrap things up on that show. Templario versus Soberano Jr. was absolutely tremendous. It was a wonderful match. And I loved it. And it led to an angle on the 19th in Korakuen where Rocky Romero convinced them to team together. Let's see how long that lasts. I have a feeling that could end in tears, but Sobrano did beat Templario in that one. It was a great match, though. I think that was the best match of the tour. I loved it. And then the main event was Volador versus Rocky Romero. That's one of the biggest matches in all of Mexican wrestling from 2022 and 2023. It was also good. They're very smooth together. They know how to work. They had one of the hottest feuds, like I said, in Lucha Libre. And then Volador won it with a springboard off the second rope into a destroyer, which is a very cool move. And it was portrayed as a shock by the announcers and the crowd seemed surprised. But the destroyer is Volador's finisher. So that's
well,
when he went, I knew what was going on, but apparently they didn't. But that was they said, "Wow, what a surprise!" I'm like, "Well, that is his finish." But anyway,
the one match that I would say people on the 18th should make their way to watch too is Titan versus Brilliante. That was an 8-minute sprint. It was fantastic. People won't be talking about it enough because all the other matches on that card were also just spectacular. But man, They had their shoes on that night.
The 19th was also good. The final night of the tour. It was also really good. The two Cork and Hall shows, clearly the two best. I think the 18th, a little better than the 19th. But the 19th also had Atlantis Jr. over Hechicero. Found out that a few years ago at Fantasticamania, that was Atlantis's like first wrestling matches were part of Fantasticamania when his father came over and brought him with him. And I remember he was just a skinny little kid back then. He's filled out and he's really turned into a good worker. Místico over Ultimo Guerrero. I mean, that's two legends. So, I mean, that's fantastic. Místico's 41 now. Ultimo Guerrero's in his low 50s, so around the same age as Nagata and Kojima, and in that category of guys who maybe don't do everything they did when they were 30, but can still work a hell of a good match. And then you had Mascara Dorada. I keep mispronouncing that. I apologize. Mascara Dorada against Stuka Jr. That's also a strong match. And this tour was partly about showing that you have Místico, who is the legend and the top guy. But there's this guy, this 22-year-old Mascara Dorada, who is going to be the next guy. No question about that. And this was portrayed that way. He got the main event win on the final night of the tour. And, we will have a Fantasticamania in 2025. They mentioned that. Yes. It will happen again, thankfully. I'll tell you what, Jeremy, I would love to see at least one of these guys in G1. And I know that they don't want to part with their top stars for an entire month. Fantasticamania, you miss one Friday night in Mexico City. You can live with that. I know you don't want to necessarily miss a bunch of these guys for a month, but one or two, right? I mean, Místico, Dorada, Volador, Templario, Hechicero, Soberano, Atlantis, any of these guys for G1, please. If you're going to do 32 guys in that tournament again, let's have a Lucha guy.
Based off of how receptive Volador felt about his family in Japan, do you think it's possible that he might be willing to, take a little trip in August to Japan with the family?
I would absolutely love it. And of course, what you're referring to is he brought his son into the ring with a mask on, which I liked because he's probably going to start his career as a masked wrestler. He brought him into the ring. He's 9 years old and said something along the lines of, this is my son. He's the next generation of Voladors, and please take care of him. Right? And then everybody said, please take care. Watch out for him.
Thank you for taking care of him so far. Please continue to do so.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah. And then
we also my money's on Hechicero because there's a guy like that isn't like the focal point around CMLL. They're not like he's a guy on their roster, but he's clearly capitalized some popularity. So that's an excellent ambassador outwards that's not going to completely disrupt the plans of CMLL if he were to take off for a little bit.
Yeah, Templario and Hechicero are both excellent guys in that category who aren't main eventing every single week in Arena Mexico, might be able to explain away an absence and live with it. So I would love to see it, though. And, of course, if they wanted to bring in some of the smaller guys for Super Juniors, I'm not going to argue with that either. There's so much talent right now in CMLL that not all of them get on the Friday shows. So it could be a situation where CMLL can go. Like, for instance, I've been watching week after week. I only see Zandokan about every other week. And we know how good he is. It's just it's a hard show to get on.
Sure.
All right. So that was Fantasticamania and a very enjoyable week. And like I said, not exactly canon there, but there were a couple of things from that to look forward to. Like I said, they did give LIJ the wins because they have a big weekend coming up. Desperado also did real well there too. He's got a big match coming, and they did a couple of little previews with he and Show, but most of the emphasis was on the Mexican guests there. They even had Salvador Luderoff III, who is the grandson of the founder of CMLL, there in the ring with Kadani and with Tanahashi. So it was a big event there. And it's good exchange for the cultures and the companies. But there were a couple of New Japan people over in England that weekend as well. Rev Pro ran an important show for them. And on that one, we had some New Japan talent. Zack Sabre Jr. was up there, of course. He defeated Connor Mills underneath the main event. And also, we were supposed to, Jeremy, have Shingo Takagi against Gabriel Kidd. But Gabe Kidd is hurt, and he didn't work the show. So
he did not even leave Japan. He wasn't allowed to leave Japan with the injuries that he had from.
Makes you
not great.
Yeah, let's hope that he turns out to be all right there. Man, is he having a year? And longer than that. But Kid has been one of the real
He's
bright
been on
spots.
a tear.
Real bright spots in New Japan. So hopefully he is okay. Shingo ended up facing Trent Seven, which is a terrific match. And Trent knows how to work. And Shingo got the victory there. They always take care of Shingo over there in Rev Pro. And then, of course, the main event, former New Japan wrestler.
You forgot one, my friend. You forgot a match.
I went right to the main event because it's one of the better matches of the year. But Michael Oku finally got his win over Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to get to the other one too because it is kind of.
I thought you would leave Will Ospreay for last. My apologies.
Well, no, Ospreay's not in New Japan anymore. But this is one of the things that Rev Pro does very, very well is a passing of the torch match. Because I flash back to a couple of years ago when Zack Sabre finally put over Will Ospreay for that Rev Pro title. And it was such a big moment in Will's career. And it was so well built. They did it again for Michael Oku, who finally got the victory over Ospreay. Wonderful match went, 47 minutes?
47.
Yeah. And Oku got the victory, won the Rev Pro title. And just an explosion of emotion as well, because they did such a good job building that feud. But Jeremy, tell us about the Underneath tag team that made its debut on this one.
My friend, Oscar Loibe and Yuto Nakashima made their debut here at the Rev Pro show.
Yeah.
Second or third match from the bottom. They defeated Kieran Lacey and Mark True in 9 minutes and 25 seconds. Do you know what their team name is, Stephen Conway?
They're like Youngblood, right?
They are the Youngblood. 2 words,
yeah.
Youngblood. And they come out there and they know how to rock. And they look like they're going to beat some people up. They look great. Their personality shining through. Confident babyface team. This was every undercard tag match you'll ever see. They're incredibly competent for it being their first professional excursion tag team match that I've seen based off of where they came and everything they've seen. Like they have applied all of their lessons and they're going to be just fine.
All right. Well, there you have it. So their excursion is underway officially now. They've had their debut match as a team in Rev Pro. So Nakashima and Loibe. New beginning in Sapporo. Boy, this is a card that has slowly built. They kind of just leaked a couple of matches at a time over the course of weeks, and it turned into a couple of the better lineups we've seen outside of Dominions and Wrestle Kingdoms. I mean, Jeremy, I'm really excited about this show tomorrow morning. It's going to begin on Friday, February 23rd, and we've got Frontier Zone match to kick it off, but it's just 2 loaded cards.
I feel like we are not prepared for what's going to happen on this card. There's this calm before the storm, if you will, where you feel like you got everything figured out of what they're going to do on these shows. And I think they're about to kick our asses pretty hard with what our expectations are and what we're going to be going into the New Japan Cup with the results that we have. Yeah. We got hair matches, we got title matches, we got stipulations to leave factions. I mean, if they weren't trying to tell you like, hey, hold on to your hats, hold on to your hats,
It should be very interesting. Every single match on the card has something interesting about it, both days. And there really aren't too many things going on here that aren't pretty important going forward. And for Dunstan and Colin, we're going to get to some of the questions that you've posed to us before and sprinkle them in as we get to those moments in these 2 shows. Tyler's here too. Tyler, good to see you. He said yeah, and he just says, can't wait for this weekend. So much wrestling. And then we leave Monday for a week at Universal Studios, Florida. I'll enjoy that.
On, man.
Good time. Yeah, I mean, Elimination Chamber too. All kinds of stuff going. But so we'll begin with the 23rd. And I wanted to mention that we do have a Frontier Zone match. If we don't have a graphic for it, that's fine. It's Tomoya and Toru Yano against Shoma Kato and Tomoaki Honma. Tomoya has been a DDT guy for years and years and years. But he's also been freelancing a lot more in the last couple of years. We've seen him before. He's going to be making a couple more New Japan appearances up in Sapporo there, which is kind of his part of the country. So Tomoya and Toru Yano, of course, Toru Yano has that whole Hokkaido, a sports ambassadorship, or one of the things as part of his introduction has to do with it. So you gotta have those guys part of the card in Sapporo.
All
so
part
they
of the
will
hustle.
Yuji Nagata versus Zack Sabre Jr. Now, besides, this is going to be a great match. This is more of the storyline, isn't it, Jeremy, with the Zack Sabre Jr. Bryan Danielson dynamic, where they are trying to face the same opponents. Of course, Danielson and Nagata faced each other recently. Now we get Jack and Nagata. Zack and Nagata? What do you think we're looking at here?
I think we are looking towards an anything you can do, I can do better match, and we're going to see the hints of whatever the final stipulation is going to be between the two, because I suspect however Zach wins is going to heavily suggest the kind of match that they're looking to do. So submission or pinfall. I don't remember exactly how, like, I just went blank on how the past two matches ended. But whatever the final one is, we're going to get the hit here.
Well, Danielson won with the knee shot, and Pick, of course, had the roll up in the scramble and pinned him. So it's been two pinfalls. Submission. You think it'll be a submission here?
I think we're looking at like Zach doing a submission, and then whatever the final match is likely a submission match.
Well, I thought, they mentioned the 2 out of 3 last time is what Danielson wants. He wanted 2 out of 3. Maybe the whole idea is if it goes to a third fall, the third fall will be submission only. That's
sure. Thing. Like if Zach did a strike win for the first match, and then Danielson did what Zach did on the second time, and then the third one is a submission, whoever gets it on that one. That seems like the kind of poetry that they would create between each other.
There you go. After that, we'll have Bolton Oleg, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Togi Makabe against Kanemaru, Yujiro, and Yujiro Takahashi, and Ren Narita. This one feels it probably has the least heat on it of any match on the two shows. It's a trios match. I'm sure Oleg will do some pretty impressive things, but this feels like a way just to kind of get a House of Torture a victory here, doesn't it?
Not only that, or it could be a way to keep House of Torture out of the way for the later matches tonight.
That's also possible.
If they manage to piss off Oleg just a little bit too much, some of them might not be around later on tonight. Who knows? But it could go either way. This is one of those matches that it's very curious, because however it goes just kind of gives you ideas of how the rest of the night is going to go for House of Torture.
After that, we will have Okada's second to last match in New Japan as a contracted wrestler. My goodness. So we will have Yoshihashi, Goto, and Tomohiro Ishii teaming up with Kazuchika Okada to face Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Hanare, the Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb. And the 2 days here, we're doing these 10-man tags with Okada against United Empire. And the story here isn't going to be so much about who wins, who loses, or anything. It's just a matter of saying farewell to one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, it's getting bittersweet. It's been bittersweet for a while, and I don't see Okada losing in any fashion or his side losing in any fashion in either of these matches. It doesn't make sense given how strong they booked him on the way out. So I think this is give the fans what they want. And we're going to get 10 to 15 minutes of just, prolonged Okada goodness.
Hopefully Jeff Cobb's quad is healed up from what we dealt with there in Osaka, where he gutted through a pretty painful injury to get through that cage match right there. So we're hoping that Jeff Cobb is closer anyway to full strength for this one, and he can have his moments with Okada over those 2 days. So we will then see match number, what do we figure, 907 between just 5 guys.
908.
908.
907 last.
Yeah, I knew I missed one. But we had this is just a prelude to the 5 singles matches the day before. So, or the next day rather, look for all the various matchups: Uemura and Tsuji, Sanada and Naito, Shingo and Taichi, to have their moments where they square off in this one. But this is strictly an appetizer for the 5 singles match series we'll see on the 24th.
As we inch closer and closer to the LIJ Just 5 Guys season finale.
Which I think we're all looking forward to. And
ready.
Well, Colin mentions this as well, and he's exactly right. I hope Hanare is okay after what he went through in the cage match. Yes, where his skull was exposed, for the love of God. He got hit so hard. So hoping that all the members of United Empire are all right. Somehow Francesco Akira was. You could see the gig marks on his forehead. He was roughed up, but he managed to get through Fantasticamania effectively.
Here's the thing about that. Henare was the first to talk some shit on social media when Gabe Kidd couldn't go at Ring Pro. So if Henare can't go after he talked some shit on Gabe Kidd, somebody's gonna get in some trouble.
I think he's okay. I think he probably got stitched up good, but I think he's all right. But yeah, the next one. Now, this one we're going to pause and talk a few things about because the whole Stardom dynamic is an interesting one. We have the IWGP Women's Title match. This is between the champion Mayu Iwatani, one of the all-time greats, and Mina Shirakawa, who is an excellent wrestler. And this match is going to be terrific. I've been watching the preview tags they've been doing over on Stardom World, Jeremy, and they've been terrific. These two work very well together. I don't expect a title change, but nothing's for sure. They could end up going with Mina there. Mina is certainly both telegenic, photogenic, and charismatic. So somebody who could, if Stardom decides they want to go a different way with Iwatani. I'm still leaning toward Iwatani winning this. What's your gut tell you?
I think it's best for business. I think Mayu Iwatani is probably going to stick around because there's an incorporation factor that we have to keep in mind now that Rossi is gone. And it seems like the obstacles of people cooperating and where they are wrestling these matches suddenly seems a little freer, and whether good or bad for representation for Stardom. So I think in kind of everyone's best interest that Mayu Iwatani is around, that she should probably have a belt for stability right now. And nothing against Mina Shirakawa, but I just think Mayu Iwatani is the person in the position.
Yeah, and we're talking about, like, Dunstan asked this at this point with the Wrestle Universe news. Wrestle Universe bringing in they're bringing in more companies, right? There's and Sendai Girls, I guess, are going to be on there with the archive, and there's just a whole thing with Wrestle Universe bringing in more and more companies. He's asking, should Stardom and New Japan World, Stardom World and New Japan World be under one banner? And again, this all goes into this thought of what are Bushiroad's plans for these two companies as far as working together goes. We didn't see much of this, where the IWGP Women's Champion comes to New Japan and defends the title on a New Japan show, which is what we thought we were getting. Now we're starting to, or at least we have it here. We heard that there was supposed to be a women's match at Windy City Riot, but that's not going to happen now. Should they go under one banner? Stardom World and New Japan World are very different services. And there would have to be a major IT integration of those two. Should they do it? I don't know. Here's the thing, that you don't want to cannibalize two different income streams. So if you were going to combine them, it would have to be a bundle, I think, in the way that Disney, Hulu, ESPN Plus are bundled together, Jeremy, where it's not folding into one app, but still the three different apps. But I think it would be a smart move for Bushiroad to offer both, maybe for the equivalent of $2 a month less, if you get both, and then getting them a la carte. I think that would be a smart move. I think that would get a little bit of traction. I don't see them just taking both and combining them into one service, because then you have some Stardom fans who wouldn't want to pay all that much extra for New Japan, and probably a lot of New Japan people that wouldn't want to pay that much extra for Stardom. So maybe a bundle more than just a complete merge of the two services is where that's the direction I would want them to take it. And the other thing is, I would want them to fix Stardom World, because it's trash. It's awful. The interface is bad.
Stardom World and user interface is what has made it very difficult for me to fully invest myself into it, because it is a climb to get through it. There's a couple of things that you have talked about here that I have been batting around in my head. First off, the cooperation between Stardom and New Japan. You are more likely to have Stardom talent intersecting onto a New Japan show than you are ever going to have New Japan talent wrestling on a Stardom show, for the most part, because just that's the way it's going to be. So there's a disparity there of the perception. So how you manage to get a rising tide to lift all ships is kind of what I think Bushiroad's approach is. Like, how can we get more eyes on Stardom? How can that help New Japan? Will New Japan be more interested if we incorporate these Stardom shows? Does Stardom feel more important if we are focusing them on New Japan? Does insulating Stardom within itself make that feel more important? That's kind of the crossroads that we're at right here in trying to figure out what Bushiroad's philosophy is. The other one is Stardom has a show WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia, right?
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't Ring of Honor have a Supercard of Honor also that weekend? So are we going to start seeing potentially like a Ring of Honor / Stardom intersection with some of the talent there because of the proximity and the relationship between Tony Khan and Bushiroad rather than Tony Khan and what his relationship with Rossi apparently was? So those are all factors that we have to keep in play. Is the Stardom show going to be supplanted and lifted up by AEW and Ring of Honor women?
I don't know. I'm not convinced Tony knows anything about what's going on in Japan. Right?
No, but if they're talking with Bushiroad, are we being silly to rule out this possibility in order to get? Yeah,
I don't think it's silly, but I do think it speaks again to this match that Mayu Iwatani's not losing that belt anytime soon. Because what's a bigger draw? Is Mayu Iwatani in Philadelphia to hardcores or Mina Shirakawa, and it's Mayu. But if you want to sell those tickets in that building in Philadelphia, as far as integrating with AEW, I mean, we would all like to think so. And they've had things like,
No, I'm talking Ring of Honor. I'm thinking Ring of Honor.
But that's AEW. They can call it.
But there are people in Ring of Honor. Like I'm thinking Athena wrestling at Stardom, which will drive people way more insane than half the roster of the AEW talent.
I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's a priority for Ring of Honor. I don't see it as I don't think it's a priority for Tony. I just don't. I don't think great wrestling is that important on the women's side for Tony because I think he likes personalities and skits more than he has Athena, but he also has Toni Storm, who's a great wrestler, and he seems to be pushing her a lot harder now that she's doing skits and silly stuff. So again, Athena is doing great matches and he puts them on the ROH streaming service and she's never seen. So is he sitting there thinking, think of all the great women's wrestling matches we could have? I'm not convinced Tony's cares that much. I think he's looking forward to having Mercedes because she's a big draw. But I think again, we're going to get a lot of personality and production out of that.
I think the Mercedes acquisition is precisely why I'm giving more thought to him being open to Stardom talent because
he needs good wrestlers to face her. Yes. He doesn't have a ton of them.
Yes, here we are. Now we're getting somewhere. If this is why the Ring of Honor Stardom intersection on WrestleMania weekend is so interesting because I don't know if Stardom really knows how to map out a successful touring of the United States. And if they have that intersection with Ring of Honor, and I'm specifically talking Ring of Honor, because like a water testing. And when Stardom and New Japan and AEW do their thing, Tony's going to do his major announcement. He's going to do all these things. But if he does like the soft little test the waters with Ring of Honor and can also increase that relationship, all of a sudden he might have a pipeline to some other women talent that have lately all seemed to go to WWE. And that part that I'm thinking long term is like maybe there's something to this and I don't love it, but there might have to be a plan and opportunity here that people have to take up.
Colin mentions that Mayu has her movie coming out, so no chance she drops the title. Yeah, I mean, I think she'll be a champion. It could very well be IWGP when that movie comes out.
I think also, Julia is less likely to be a champion by the time April rolls around and Mayu.
I think so, too. Colin asks, has Thunder Rosa wrestled since she came back from injury? I know she wrestled in San Antonio because it was kind of a big deal here that Thunder Rosa got back in the ring. Again, I'm not sure Rosa's on the level of some of the people we're talking about either. I mean, really, it's what AEW, it's like who's elite as far as a wrestler in AEW? It's Tony, it's Athena,
Serena,
maybe JC when she's she got hurt a long time ago. The British girl, Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter's pretty good. Sorry, Jamie. I just blanked on the name. Jamie Hayter is pretty good when she's healthy. So, but after that, there's a pretty steep drop off.
Serena Deeb.
Yeah, maybe. But
you don't like
doesn't.
Deeb?
I mean, she's good, but she's good. But I mean, you're talking about it's a different level.
I think Serena Deeb can go, my man. I think
she can go. I mean, she can go, but I mean, does she have?
I think if you put her in a match with Stardom talent, I think you'd be like, God damn, Serena Deeb.
No. I mean, she would be good. I'm talking about like someone who you could have. You know, if you're going to pay Mercedes, which he's paying Mercedes,
yes,
you want to sell pay-per-views off it.
Yes.
And I'm just saying, like, who could actually draw on pay-per-view?
I see. Mercedes? This is going to talent.
Sorry.
This is
star.
Who's the box office?
Yeah, who's box office?
So once we get through Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, we're starting to scrape because Tony Storm's gimmick isn't working for us.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm
like
Tony
and Mercedes. Tony and Mercedes would have a phenomenal match. Tony's on that level as far as
if she got rid of that gimmick. I absolutely.
Well, if she drops the gimmick while she wrestles, that would be one thing. You can do the gimmick, but then wrestle like Tony Storm, and you could have that match. Wrestle like Tony Storm, but Hayter maybe. But you think that Athena certainly. But after that, there's a pretty steep drop off as far as star power and talent goes on that. So I mean, Riho always gets over, so you could do something with that.
But she's only there for like 3 weeks at a time. She's there for 3 weeks, and then she's gone for 25.
You're paying Mercedes a lot of money, and they don't have a ton of people. I mean, you could get a match out of Britt Baker, and Mercedes could probably carry Britt to get something out of that. Britt's not very good in the ring, but she could at least be carried for a while. It's an interesting thing because he's paying her a lot of money for a while. You got to find opponents. So I'm curious. Yeah, anyway, but getting back to what we're kind of digressing,
could be very interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is with this, but how are they? I think that this is the right arrangement. Is the IWGP Women's Champion defending on big New Japan shows? I think that is the smart way to do it. It is a way to showcase various Stardom wrestlers by bringing them in and getting them a little bit of exposure there, because the New Japan audience is larger. And hopefully get those people to check out Stardom, which I think is the correct strategy for this. So I think we're inching in the right direction here.
I got one last question for you about this, because you are the Stardom watcher.
Okay.
How impactful is her having that title to the greater Stardom landscape?
It's secondary to the Stardom titles within Stardom. So when you're watching a Stardom show, you really feel like Micah's the world champion. She's the World of Stardom champion. She's got the red belt. That's the big one. Saori Anou has the white belt. That feels like a bigger deal. Anything Iwatani does is a big deal because she's one of the biggest stars. But the IWGP women's title within the universe of Stardom doesn't feel as big as the white or the red belt, which just has more history behind it.
So there's no impact to her losing this title in the middle of the card of the Stardom show.
She would still be one of the biggest stars in Stardom either way. But here's the other thing, that the World of Stardom champion Micah is in the same faction as Shirakawa. Would they want those two belts concentrated? Perhaps, to give that newish faction a monster push if they wanted to do that. But similar to New Japan, they like to spread the belts out among the factions, unless they're really pushing somebody hard. So again, I think Iwatani, Colin mentioned it, she's got a movie coming out about her life. She's the biggest star. And again, she's the right person to elevate others in the eyes of New Japan fans who maybe don't follow Stardom on a regular basis. So it still smells like a title retention here.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here. But like I said, anything can happen. So confident if we are about anything, we're not confident about it.
No, especially because, again, as we've found out, there are a lot of things at play here, including some of the corporate folks at Bushi Road who seem to be influencing Ogawa. And this is the other thing I was thinking, Jeremy, too, while we're on this. We found out that Rossi Ogawa was having booking decisions dictated to him by Bushi Road. The idea now that Gedo is totally independent and making all of his own decisions looks a little silly now, doesn't it? Because Gedo is not in Rossi Ogawa's position to say anything about it. And he wouldn't anyway, because in kayfabe purposes, he's not the booker, right? But the idea that Gedo now has just been doing whatever he's wanted to over the past few years, it feels a little silly to think of it that way now that we know that, Ogawa had, because of Bushi Road, Ogawa had FU money because he sold him the company, and eventually he said FU and I'm out of here, right? But Gedo doesn't have that. So, I mean, if Rossi was being interfered with, it does make you wonder, is like, how much are some of these booking mistakes to blame from Ghetto, and how much is Bushiroad? We'll never know. We'll never
Luke
know.
Lips think ships, my friend.
Well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, it is a point where when we're criticizing Ghetto, we do have to wonder, is like, how is this Ghetto, or is this somebody in Bushiroad just saying, well, that guy needs to win because he sells more t-shirts? That guy sells more t-shirts. Yeah. And yeah, Colin mentions Mayu is the biggest star in Stardom. She's not called the Icon for nothing. And yeah, they have shirts and everything referring to her as the Icon. That's on her video presentation when she comes out. She is the star. We also have this one, though. After Mina Shirakawa and Mayu Iwatani, we will be seeing the junior heavyweight title on the line, Desperado versus Sho. Interesting one here because, of course, Sho basically irritated Desperado enough to put the title on the line. I was just looking at the New Japan website, the preview for this show. It doesn't mention a word about Sho joining Strong Style if he loses, but Chris Charlton mentioned it at Korakuen Hall. They've, alluded to it in backstage comments. I don't know if that's an official stipulation. It doesn't specifically say, but that was what was laid out there in Osaka. Desperado just saying, you'll be getting me Melon Pond if you lose this match, saying that he's basically going to be his gopher and the junior member of Strong Style. But now that's not really officially on the website. So I don't know. Either way, it's an IWGP junior heavyweight title match.
I am into this match only on the basis of if Desperado wins, because if he doesn't, I'm going to be super annoyed.
Yes, me too. I think it's way, way, way too early. There's another thing we have to think about, and we'll get to the world title match later, but there is an anniversary show that they need to sell tickets for on March 6th. You have Sho and Desperado, Naito and Sonata. To me, there is no question that the sexiest matchup of those, the one that would sell the tickets, is Naito and Desperado. It's the best match. You can say that, Sho with House of Torture against Naito and all that. I just have a hard time seeing them put that as the main event of the anniversary show. So for the anniversary show purpose, if there was no anniversary show, I'd be less certain, but I really feel like Desperado wins this, don't you?
This is where the curse of their booking kind of hamstrings them, because this plausible deniability. I mean, I feel like this was never. We were supposed to have Watto and Sho at some point, and then we were going to be heading in a different direction. Then perhaps this was always going to be the plan at some point, whether it was this early or not. This could be a lot of fun, but you are almost guaranteed some aspect of House of Torture BS based off of the conversation we had, 20 minutes ago before we went down the Stardom hall.
Well, yeah.
This could be the match people talk about, even though there's so many eyes on every other match of this show. This does have potential, but I'm not prepared to say this is the one that's going to steal the show.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Sho is a good wrestler when he wrestles, but he's in House of Torture, and sometimes the gimmick is more important than that when it comes to the booking. We know that Kanemaru is a great wrestler. We know that Sho is a great wrestler. We know Ren Narita can wrestle. It's just a matter of sometimes they just don't, because it's a House of Torture thing. So, and I lean toward Desperado just because they have a couple of things where the junior heavyweight champion has to draw.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about the scenarios of Sonata versus Sho, or Sonata versus Desperado, or Desperado versus Naito, and it just Desperado versus Naito seems like the best one of those to do.
Seems like the ones that would sell tickets. And Dunstan asks, do you think it's a bad time to take the belt off Despy when he's a draw for the junior division? Yep, sure do. I think that would be a mistake.
I think it would be a mistake. If you're going to have Hiromu holding the title for a calendar year and then have the next guy not be able to hold it for 8 weeks is kind of a bad look.
Yeah. All right. After that, we will have another title. There are a lot of title matches. We have the Never Openweight title match. This is another one that we can debate. It is the champion, Evil, defending against Shota Umino. Again, this is all something where we're kind of going through a course correction here. I believe that, Tama Tonga won the title and then announced he was leaving in that order. And it sounds like it was probably in that order to New Japan too. Mm-hmm. But here we are. They had to get it off of him. They put it on Evil. Question is, was this just a transition to get it from Tama Tonga over to Shota Umino? So with that in mind, if we are doing a reset, if Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada and Tama Tonga are all gone from what is effectively the babyface side here, it feels like it might be time for Shota Umino to win this thing. Now, I made a note of this when I was looking at this, and I think I know where you're going to go too. How many times have we thought, okay, this is the big win for Shota? It seems like it happens every other month. We're like, okay, this is the time when Shota is going to get the win, the big win here. And it never friggin' happens. So if it weren't for all that, I would think definitely Shota. It might be. But I can't feel confident about anything when it comes to him because they seem to just want his big win, whatever that may be in their minds, as that carrot on that stick. Do you think we finally get the carrot, Jeremy?
I don't think so.
You think Evil's retaining?
This is one of those that they could go either way. So I'm looking here, and these are the title match opportunities that Shota Umino has had in the past. He has lost to Will Ospreay at Historic Xover.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for a IWGP United States title match. He lost the New Japan World Television title to Zack Sabre Jr. in 13 minutes. And then he lost again to Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Heavyweight title match. I don't rule out that this being the time. I also don't rule out that the general philosophy of how much time they have to let these guys cook before they start giving them big wins, that philosophy has changed. And this is going to be the first opportunity for one of these guys, now that Okada is taking off and Tanahashi is in charge, for us to see what the booking style is going to be. Are they going to let him simmer? Are they going to wait a little while and make the fans work for this big first title win for one of these former Young Lions turned next generation? Or are they just going to say, we're putting the pedal on the gas and we're going for it? If it were me, I would go for it. I would just be like, put the belt on him and just have him look strong and then find a challenger for him in the New Japan Cup. Have him go far. Everything will be great. No problem at all. But that's also a disparity in who has belts. If House of Torture is going beltless going forward, maybe you just put the never openweight trios titles back on them and kind of figure that whole thing out. This is without a doubt the biggest crossroads match that they have in all of the shows, even more than Yoda and Yuya with their hair match and Hanada and Naito. This one is telling the audience exactly how they're moving forward with their plans with these guys that are the next generation.
I thought it was telling that they took Narita and Shota, which looked like it was going to be going for a while, and there's no doubt it'll go on for years. But for now, they put a pin in it, right? They have that one big match, and they gave Shota a pretty solid win in that one. And then they're putting a pin in Tsuji versus Uemura. Like, part of the interviews of this have been about how we're going to settle this and then we're going to move on from each other because this is killing both of us. If you're going to do that, if you're not going to have them paired up because you have the other guys that are on top that you didn't know you were going to lose, then yeah, it feels like it's the reason you would take them away from one another is to launch them and then bring them together again when they're the top guys. I feel like this is the beginning for Umino, and yes, I have felt it before, but I do think that Shota does win this and go into it. And there's some points made here by the audience that I want to get to here, but you could just have him feud with Ren if you weren't going to send him to the top with a title. You could just have him keep that feud going with Ren, and they intentionally ended that and moved on for now. And they're going to come back to it.
That's what they did with Yuta and Yuya. They have kept this thing going all the way through, and sure does seem like it was supposed to be Ren and Shota for a little bit while longer, and then everything kind of changed.
And it will be again. But Colin says that Shota has to win here surely. Well, all right, he feels confident. Dunstan says, let's say Shota wins. Do you think his chances to win the New Japan Cup decrease? Yes. If he doesn't win here, he's definitely one of the favorites for the New Japan Cup. But there are a lot of people that could win the cup. We're gonna talk about that in a little while, who we think our cup favorites a little bit. We've got some ideas. But Venkin mentions this too. Venkin's here. And Dunstan, we're glad you got out early and could join us, by the way. Venkin says, I'm still believing in Shota Moxley at Forbidden Door. The student and the teacher have to fight sometime, right? And that would be an excellent time to do it. Dunstan mentions one thing from earlier. Do you think it's time to turn Show face again with him being very popular before the pandemic? If Desperado wins and if they hold to that where he has to join Strong Style, then I think that's where it goes. I think that's where it goes. I think they turn Show face off of that. I don't think he just, bothers Desperado and then goes back to House of Torture. Maybe he fakes like he's going to turn babyface and then heals on him and things. But to answer your question, Dustin, I think it would be a smart move. I think they're kind of wasting Show in that role. Kanemaru can work because he's still a good wrestler, but he's in his 40s. It wouldn't hurt him to dial it back a little bit and do the House of Torture gimmick for a little while. But Show, he's still got good years out of. He could be doing something else. And I felt the same way about Taiji Ishimori, who doesn't need to be in Bullet Club anymore. I don't think it serves him. So, yeah, that was my
thought. For me, the play would be the slow burn of just Hontai turning Show back, and then like him be faced with a crossroads moment later on in May or June or whatever. Let this thing play out, and he has to decide for in the heat of the moment what side he's going to take, and then we either are affirmed or our hearts are broken. Yeah. But this got the makings of a good 3-month little subplot.
And here's a great point from Dunstan here. New Japan literally can't afford not to put some new guys in the forefront. Amen, brother. Amen, brother. And he also mentions a bad dude Tito. Big Teats would be a good first challenger for Shota. Hey, if it brings more bad dude Tito to Japan, all for it. Absolutely. I think that guy is a much bigger star than he has been portrayed so far. I think he can do a lot. Royce Isaacs too, by the way. Let's get a little bit of love for Team Filthy here. But
shout out to Jarrell Nelson as well while we're at it.
Jarrell's terrific. I'm just going off of his performance in that G1 with when Tom Lawler came over here. I'm still impressed by it. Yeah. So but you said it really well here, Jeremy. This is going to tell us a lot about what kind of guts New Japan has right now. It's like, are we really going with the kids, or are we going to go with the people who have been selling shirts for us for a while? And so this could be a bit of the bean counters versus the artistic guys here in a way.
Apparently my dog's coughing up hairballs, so don't mind.
Oh, no. Well, all right. There you go.
Right back down like a lazy butthole.
We still have 2 more title matches to talk about from tomorrow. Gosh, tomorrow's a big day. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Matt Riddle for the television title. So, been thinking about this one. Another one that could go a lot of different directions here. So, Riddle as TV champion, off the top of my head, doesn't make a ton of sense because he's not necessarily going to be in New Japan full time. However, beating him in his first major singles match also doesn't make a whole lot of sense. A draw is always possible, but not particularly satisfactory. So you could talk me into either guy going over here. They might just beat Riddle, just have it be like a little roll up and a pin, and to have Riddle go off into something later. He's another guy that could end up winning the New Japan Cup if he doesn't, I'm not going to pile on to this, but as long as he stays out of trouble. But he is a contender for that, right? And but you could put him in the TV title thing. It just seems he as a TV champion seems strange to me. What do you think?
How many titles do you think are going to change hands tonight?
I mean, you got to think at least
4 title matches.
At least
4, right?
There's got to be at least 1.
There's 4 title matches, right?
Yeah,
there's the TV. There's the Never.
I think Shota's going to win the Never. I don't think Sho is going to win. I don't think Shirakawa is going to win.
So there's 5 singles matches with title matches.
Yes.
Right? Wow.
That's correct.
There's a lot of title matches tonight. You got to flip a couple of titles, right?
Yes. And this could definitely be one of them. I still think the Never title is the most likely, but they could do it here.
If
he seems like a strange TV champion.
Spent the entirety of last year with Zack Sabre Jr. as the head of TMDK, holding the New Japan TV title belt, World Television title belt, and that using that as almost a main event act sometimes and propping up undercard shows. Matt Riddle seems like a kind of guy that they would do exactly the same thing and put him in front of another stable, whether new or existing, and just have him be that guy for the next year. You know, in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they said they gave him a year-long visa. Like New Japan got him a year-long visa for him. So he's going to be around this year. Maybe New Japan Cup, you know, all these things, like setting up feuds. You know, like I think we need to get ready for a little bit of Riddle time for the next 10 months is what I'm thinking.
Benson says, if Riddle wins, I'm blaming President Tana because he has the power to stop it. There you go. It's so, I mean, I suppose, you might talk me into it. I was thinking more of a New Japan Cup run for him than a TV title run, but that doesn't mean you can't do both, to be fair. I mean, you could do both.
I think you need a statement win out the gate with Riddle, and Tanahashi is no longer at the level where it's going to destroy the promotion if he were to lose to a new guy on the first night.
It's also a way, and the more I think about it, the more I'm leaning toward Riddle, is because you had to get the thing off of Zach because I think they have bigger plans for Zach. I think he's going to be top gaijin, basically, is how it's going to end up. He's going to take that spot. With that in mind, you can have him lose to Tanahashi. No one's ever really hurt by losing to Tanahashi, but you don't necessarily want Zach to lose to Riddle just because you have those plans to launch.
That's a match down the line.
Oh, right. Yeah. Don't do it now. Don't do that yet. So this might just be a thing where Tanahashi's like, well, I'll take it for a little while and get it to Matt. And that way we don't have to see Zach losing to Matt. Zach can go on and to bigger deals. So that's
do you remember how this started?
How this whole thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Riddle video. And Tanahashi basically said, I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah.
So from the get-go,
not a big Raw
set up. No, I think it's all storyline. I think it's all like, oh, you didn't know my name. Now you know my name.
Okay. There you go.
And I think that might be what we end up having. I didn't know his name. Now I know his name. That may
and I also just go back to his first big singles match. If you got him the visa for a year, it is weird to beat him. He'd be an odd TV champ, but he could probably handle it for a while.
That's where I'm at.
And again, it still goes against everything they said the TV title was going to be, but I think we can just dismiss that altogether, can't we? Can't we just forget that ever happened? They never said
different executives, different philosophy.
That's very true. Very true. The global title, this new one right here. This is the first defense, I think, isn't it? The IWGP global title, David Finlay against Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler. Certainly an interesting one here, but Finlay getting the main event of a very loaded card. So Nick Nemeth, David Finlay, global title. I expect a retention here just because Nemeth is mostly going to be working for TNA. Not that means they can't work together, but this seems like a title and a run for the War Dogs that is designed to get David Finlay over. I don't think you interrupt that for Nemeth here. I feel like Finlay is a guy that they really want to put the rocket on. Now, you had an interesting theory, though, about how this could go Nemeth's way. And it is intriguing. So go ahead and share that, please.
Well, if they were to just have Finlay get the credibility like he did in the press conference, talk about how he beat Will Ospreay in his last two matches. He got the visual pinfall at Wrestle Kingdom, and then in the New Beginning in Osaka, David Finlay got the pin on Ospreay. If they believe that that is enough credibility for him to move forward and springboard him forward, they could have Nick Nemeth win this title. We have talked about how the global title is the title that you go outwards and people challenge you as a representative of New Japan. And if he's going to be at TNA and he is going to be at all these other promotions that theoretically have a relationship already with New Japan, what's to say Nick Nemeth isn't the global champion going to TNA, going to MLW, doing all these other matches? It is not completely outside of the realm of possibility. How much would I hedge on that? I'm 50-50. Like I'm not fully invested in this theory, but there's also this idea with David Finlay that he did these things. And if he were to lose the title right now and then go into the New Japan Cup wanting to absolutely wreak hell on everybody and destroy everybody in his path on the road to winning the New Japan Cup when he came so close last year, losing to Sonata in the end. That's also a story. And that's why this one is so interesting. I think they're going to be the traditional route. David Finlay is going to win in his title defense, and they're just going to keep building him up. But that's the reason why they might not. And as we've been saying, nothing is for certain right now in New Japan. They, with the top being completely blown up, they can reset this however they see fit, and they have given no indication of how they're going to do it.
Yeah, and so, yeah, you make a compelling point right there, is they could use that as a way to just launch his anger, which is part of the War Dogs gimmick, basically. And I don't even want to say gimmick. It's their persona, it's their character, is that these guys are just beyond pissed at how they've been treated over the years. To have him lose the first time out and then just have him spaz out, just lose his shit about that and just start killing everybody, that could be a compelling thing for a heel to do. I still think that this global title is made mostly to get him over, so I think that's probably what they're going to keep it on him. If I had my bet, I would lean toward Finlay, but you make a compelling point, and either way, it'll definitely matter going into the New Japan Cup big time. Venkin mentions this. What I want to know is how much influence does Nakamura bringing Nick into contact with them do for him? No, well, I'm not really sure. What I'm not totally. Do you know what
I think he thinks Nakamura was the one that got Nemeth in touch with New Japan, and I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
So I had my wild hair up my ass theory that Nakamura might surprise show up sometime this weekend. Now that Riddle is in that final match on the 24th, I'm going to pull back on a little bit of that because I really don't think they want Riddle and Nakamura anywhere near each other in New Japan for WWE optics.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Dunstan had a question earlier that he wanted to put. He said, and it relates to the cup, or relates to a lot of it. Should New Japan use their partnerships? Since we're talking about this thing with TNA, talking about MLW, should they use their partnerships more for these tournaments to bring in fresh matches? Yes, absolutely. Yes. And especially because they've expanded the fields, right? The G1 has 32 guys in it. You could certainly have someone from CMLL and someone from AEW in there. Absolutely. Yes. You could certainly have people in the New Japan Cup from any of these companies.
Josh Alexander this year in the G1. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Super juniors. Again, there are a lot of great junior heavyweight talents in these other companies. Bring some of them in and create fresh matchups all day. Yes. I think, especially because they have expanded these fields so greatly, we don't necessarily need to see, Yujiro Takahashi in the G1. I keep picking on him, but he's the only bad wrestler on the roster really that actually can't have a good match. Like Show could, just doesn't. Same with all of the House of Torture guys. But Yujiro is the guy that he actually, if he wrestles his best, it's still so I mean, he doesn't need to be in these. Let's get somebody else in there.
Speaking of Bullet Club, did you happen to catch that Leo Rush apparently joined Bullet Club by two sweeting with Chris Bay over the weekend?
Oh boy, Leo! What are we going to do with Leo? I miss Leo. I do hope he comes back there.
I don't know when he comes back to New Japan, but he may be wearing the skull and bones.
I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Bay back either. By the way, I know there's only so many spots and so many places and so many, but we do have Super Juniors coming up, and you can do some interesting things with some of these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. So that is the 23rd. So again, that's tomorrow morning. We'll be able to watch that one tomorrow morning in the U.S. We can watch it. And then if you stay up nice and late and brew a pot of coffee, get some popcorn, you can stay up on Saturday, February 24th. And that is going to be from the same building in Sapporo there, Hokkaido. And another Frontier Zone match, by the way. Tomoya and Yano will face Katsuya Murashima and Honma. So between the 2 days, each of the two young lions will be teaming with Honma in that Frontier Zone match. So they'll get some reps in front of what's going to be a pretty big crowd. Then we have this one here. We have a 10-man tag, a bit of an all-skate to begin with. We have Bolton Oleg. We have Yo, who is not in the Chaos match a little bit later. He's replaced with Hiroshi Tanahashi. And we have Makabe, Desperado, and Shota Umino facing Evil, Sho, Ren Narita, Yujiro Takahashi, and Kanemaru. So you have House of Torture right there. So we will find out
if card is subject to change.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to see who has these belts, right? I mean, we're going to find out who has these belts when it comes down to it. If it's Evil and Sho carrying hardware in, or not. But either way, this will
Or
be,
even if that stipulation about Show is still a member of House of Torture.
Yeah, we'll
if
have
that
to
even
see.
happened.
Does Dick Togo have to step in while Show is carrying Desperado's towel back to the locker room from being in his tights to start off with? Could be interesting. I guess we'll find out very early on whether that stipulation sticks or not. After that, we have, here it is, second match on the card, Jeremy, really. I mean, unless you want to count Frontier Zone match, but it is the final match of Kazuchika Okada in New Japan for now. He's technically a freelancer. This is, but still his last match here. Okada, Tanahashi, Ishii. So the now former Trios champions. They did indeed vacate the title, all of them apparently. Teaming with one of the best tag teams in the world, Bishamon. So you have Bishamon and the six-man tag champs, former here, Yoshihashi Goto, against United Empire. Could be the new TV champion, Riddle, with Cobb, Okan, Francesco Akira, and Henare. This time Callum Newman steps away from the UE side.
I'm going to pause you right there. I'm going to call this Matt Riddle and the United Empire because there's never been an indication that Matt Riddle is actually in United Empire.
Okay, that's fair enough. The intrigue for me here, Jeremy, of course, we're going to have this match. There's going to be some sort of big moment after this one. I could see either any member that's not named Cobb or Riddle getting beat for United Empire here if they wanted to go that way. It just doesn't feel like any of those guys on the Hantai Chaos side are going to lose. But after that, we have two factions standing in the ring with no leader officially. Ospreay gone. After this match, Okada's gone. So it doesn't have to be right there and then, but we could see some machinations of what happens to these two groups if they do start to split up and scatter, or if a new leader steps to the forefront. We may get if we don't get the angle itself, we might get a strong hint as to where it might go. What do you think?
I like what you're putting down here. It could be a post-match angle of, some new alliances / new feuds as well.
Yeah,
but
I really think it's going to be more of a hint than an angle, because I think the emphasis is going to be on Okada and only Okada. And I don't think they'll have anything else to really overshadow it. The only thing they could do here is if Okada just named the next leader of Chaos. But that would be something. I feel like we're going to get a hint more than the big angle. I think the emphasis is just going to be on the hugs.
Yeah, I think it could be light and fluffy, if anything else. Maybe we'll get some Okada Riddle intrigue out at some point in the match, but there's probably going to be something. There's probably going to be a lot of emotion because this is it. This is it. And you've got Okada's ride or dies in there. You got the guys that have been with him the longest through this entire journey. When he came back at Wrestle Kingdom, he wrestled Yoshihashi. Like that opening match. He wrestled Yoshihashi later on. He's gone through it with all of these guys. Absolutely. It is going to be a special moment. And I don't know if I'm prepared for it. And I also haven't talked about it in a way where it's like, oh my gosh, this is it. But this is it.
And Benkin mentions, is Henare medically okay now after that bloodbath? We haven't heard otherwise. And remember, they have Callum Newman in the wings, but I feel like they would have announced it if he weren't by now.
Yeah.
So I think that
when he talked a lot of smack to Gabe Kidd, I figured he was fine, because you can't go on social media and talk about how someone isn't tough enough if you're not tough enough.
And then Dunstan says, I'm really hoping Chaos disbands after the match. Yeah, they might. And the thing is, Great Okan has been talking about United Empire in different forms. Sometimes it sounds like he's preparing for life after it. Sometimes he's saying it'll be in a different form and we'll continue forward. Of the two, I think Chaos is the most likely to split, just because there isn't another leader that makes sense. Whereas you could make a point for a couple of different guys from United Empire. And, but yeah, I mean, if there could be a real mix and match of things going forward, because there are some members of Hantai who kind of stand out too. Is Desperado really a Hantai guy? That there are places for these guys to go, I guess. I'm just saying.
We got another match coming up that's also where do you fit in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
And we'll get to
but
that.
again, just because it's Okada's very last one, I suspect that anything would be more of a hint, and then maybe the story plays out either at Anniversary or the New Japan Cup. No reason to do it all at once either. You can drag the intrigue out a little bit.
If you were going to have a hot betrayal angle, which I don't necessarily see with any of these guys, this would be the time to do it. If it's not to skyrocket a guy at Okada's cost, just let him have the goodbye after all this and move on with your plans. You don't want all your video packages afterwards to have Okada in there one last time when you can have a video package hyping up all your stuff and we can be free and clear and moving on. That's personally my philosophy on it, but they can do whatever they want. I'm still going to watch.
I've been kicking around ideas on this, maybe we should do that at the end, but there are some fantasy booking ideas that to me would make some sense here that would involve a big change as far as chaos goes and maybe not even existing anymore. So,
I mean, all I know is I'm looking at Wrestle Kingdom next year and it's Matt Riddle versus Jeff Cobb. That's it.
Could be.
At some way, shape, or form, I think Wrestle Kingdom next year is Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb. And this is going to get us there in some way, shape, or form.
Be interesting to see what happens with these two leaderless factions after this match. So, because there's a lot of good talent there. We have this one, GOD versus GOD. So this is the Jado Cup. We have El Fantasmo and Hikuleo facing Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. So Tama Tonga coming back for one more match so that they can have the whole gang is here. So the GOD teams facing off here as Guerrillas of Destiny say goodbye to New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hikuleo and El Fantasmo, the current GOD tag team. So, yeah, I mean, I think this will just be a good match. It'll probably end with hugs and handshakes.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It could be that, Tangaloa turns on somebody at the end of this because Tama Tonga will take off and the other will be like, what is happening here? Tama heads over to whatever his NXT opportunity could be.
You think that's where he's headed?
I think he's going to NXT, probably. I don't know anything other than it just seems like AEW wouldn't really have the... I don't think AEW is interested. I think they're more of a...
I was thinking TNA. I thought TNA myself.
I thought TNA me too, but I don't know if anyone's really interested in TNA at this exact moment. If you're not already signed with TNA at this
that's a fair point. It's a bit tumultuous over there right now.
Yeah, so I don't know anything, but if I were reading the tea leaves, I think Tama Tonga will be might be in NXT, and if he's good enough, maybe actually on the card by May or June.
Dunstan Williams asks, is it worrying that the Hanare contract status is unclear? To me, I don't see him. I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's pretty happy in New Japan.
I think he's happy, and there are a lot of guys that do very, very well in New Japan because they've grinded and worked very, very hard. But they would not get a second glance in AEW or WWE. And I think Hanare, unfortunately, is one of those guys. And I don't know if he needs a breakout moment or an opportunity that he has so far not had. But I think his best opportunity for success continues to be New Japan.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the best spot for him for at least another year. I mean, you can do another 1 year deal and see where things land. Next match is this one. We have
this is so weird.
Nick Nemeth and Ryusuke Taguchi teaming up against David Finlay and Geto. Jeremy, hear me out on this. This goes to my point that this is going to be a title retention for Finlay. I feel like this is a place where Nemeth can get a clean win on Geto on his way out of town for now. So that
you're right.
After he loses the title match, you got to give him something on the way out so he beats Geto. And Geto, of course, can sacrifice himself. He's the booker. He's the one that protects a lot of the Bullet Club guys. He could do the job here and get the win. That's just my theory on this match.
It could go that way, or it could go Finlay is so incensed that not only does he beat Taguchi, he puts him in a stretcher.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Venkin mentions, why is Geto wrestling? Well, again, anytime
it's February, it's got to go through a table.
Anytime Geto gets into a match, I always look at it as who does he want to put over? Because Geto very rarely does anything but the job in the matches he's in. Not never, But usually when he's in there, it's so someone else from Bullet Club doesn't have to lose, and he can put somebody else over. And Nemeth seems like an obvious choice here. If Nemeth lost the title match the night before, he goes out getting his hand raised here.
All of these things are true, but sometimes you have to go against what you normally do to catch people off guard.
Yep, you're right. You're right. After that one, we have the 5-set
just
singles
5 matches.
Yes, just 5 matches. And this will be a match. It's Taka Michinoku against Bushi. So we're starting with the prelim guys, the guys that are not protected.
The appetizer, sir.
The appetizer, yes. Yeah, exactly. So, but you figure this is probably going to come down to the last 3. I figure they'll split the first 2 or so. What do you think here?
I
feel like it'll be 2-2 going into the title match, right?
I think it'll be 2-2 going in the title match. I'm leaning towards Taka Michinoku just because they could do it. But honestly, by the time we get to the title, I'm more leaning towards making my decisions later on in the card than they are now.
Okay.
This is not what we're here for, but it will play a bigger part in the larger picture.
Right. And speaking of which, as things start to ramp up a little bit, we will have Hiromu Takahashi against Doki. Now, they've been telling the story that Doki's had Hiromu's number recently, gotten a couple of wins on Hiromu before Fantasticamania. And so this will be a clash between these two. I think that, Hiromu will probably get his wins back on this one. I feel like he's going to win.
I think this is the regress to the mean match.
Yeah. But it'll be really good. I mean, those two guys are true. And here's another one. Shingo Takagi, Taichi. Taichi is, of course, from this part of the country. I don't know if he's specifically from Sapporo, but he's always had, like, this arena has always been a big time building for him. And his win-loss record in Sapporo is very, very strong. He's often gotten his biggest G1 win, for instance, in Sapporo. So I could see Taichi absolutely beating Shingo Takagi. We know these two work great together. I could see Taichi getting a win here. His losses in Sapporo are always treated like a big deal, like title matches that he doesn't quite win type of stuff. But he usually comes through big in Sapporo. With that playing into things and needing some wins on the just 5 guys side, I think this could be a win for Taichi.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to say Bushi and Hiromu win the first 2. I think Taichi, and then we'll get to the next match, but then we'll go into that final match with momentum for one side, and it'll play into the final part of this match. When I watched the Rev Pro match between Trent Seven and Shingo Takagi, it struck me that Shingo Takagi has a signature match, just like Ishii has a match, just like Minoru Suzuki has a match. And there's a layout and a prompt to it. Sometimes when he has a opponent that he truly respects or he's immediately familiar with, he can do his match within another match. But if he doesn't have that guy, it quickly becomes a Shingo match. So with Taichi, I feel confident that we're going to get something more than just the standard Shingo match because these guys have worked so well, so frequently together.
Yeah, they do work well together. And I agree with you. I think we could see it swinging back toward the challenger side on things here. So that's just my prediction. But either way, this is going to be a great match. Whoever wins it, it's going to be a really good one. So
it'll be 2-1 LIJ to just 5 guys before we go into the 4th match.
All right. And the next one is hair versus hair. The beautiful locks of Yota Tsuji and the gorgeous mane of Yuya Uemura on the line. Jeez, it's going to be hard to believe either one of these guys gets their head shaved. But again, the story goes back to someone's going to have to go back to being a young lion, right? And in a way, young lions all have to start with their head shaved now. But Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, putting a pin in their feud for now. This has been very exciting. And I'll tell you what, the hair versus hair thing adds some real juice to this. And so I am fascinated by this. I am leaning toward Uemura winning and Yuya winning and Yota Tsuji having to shave his head, which could propel him into a big run potentially in the New Japan Cup or tear him down. And, he has to go through a bit of a crisis until G1 perhaps. But either way, it's a setback for whoever loses. It's a big step forward for whoever wins. I'm leaning toward Uemura, though, to make it look like, LIJ or just 5 guys has all the momentum going into the world title match.
I'm leaning towards Yuya winning this match and keeping his hair. I think this will be the beginning of a new direction for Yota Tsuji that will probably turn him in a little bit more ruthless and turn him inward towards LIJ, perhaps for not setting him up correctly for, you know what I mean? Like you weren't the stable that I thought you were going into this match, because if you were, you know what I mean? Like blaming them for his failure kind of thing. That's definitely a direction, because they've hinted over and over and over again that eventually Yota Tsuji is going to be wrestling everybody in just an LIJ, and it's just a matter of time. With that said, I think about the perception of these two guys. Yota Tsuji came in last year with the whole video package and then immediately went into Dominion and wrestled Sonata and lost. And there was a discourse he should have won. There was an awareness of him. He penetrated the wrestling like ecosphere enough that people are aware of Yota Tsuji in a way that he's got a greater recognition. Yuya Uemura does not have that right now. So if one of them were to lose, I would go with the guy who's already had a little bit of clout and can bounce back from it, rather than the guy who's never really been in the position to get a lot of attention. Then all of a sudden he's just a guy who had his head shaved. He needs more accomplishments to rise up to make his fall back down mean more. It's just a guy getting his haircut if it's Yuya Uemura. But if Yota Tsuji gets his haircut, it's a bigger deal. And that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Yota Tsuji, because there's way more to mine from it. And also, have you seen Yuya's hair? It's amazing.
They can't do it.
You cannot cut that.
And I agree with Dunstan completely. This is the main event for me. I'm much more. This feels like there's much more heat on it than the world title match, which I feel like everybody understands is going to go a specific way. And this one just has a lot more steam on it. I agree with you. Tsuji losing his hair is just more interesting, and it provides more variables. I just think it's the way to go. I hate to see that long hair go, but I do think it's probably the right move overall, going into the New Japan Cup, going into the summer, to see Yota Tsuji have to be torn down and rebuilt in some way, whether that's in LIJ or not. But yes, all day long, I agree with what you said. Doesn't mean they won't do it, but I just feel like this is Uemura's thing, and Tsuji has to swallow his pride.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you all the way. I think this is the main event in a lot of ways. I think after we get through all the other matches, I don't know who exactly is interested in Naito and Sonata one last time, seeing as even Naito appears to be looking past Sonata as much as everyone else is.
And it's funny, Jeremy, I'm kicking around this because I'm looking forward to Elimination Chamber. I think WWE has been really strong lately, and I've been enjoying it. But I feel like I know who's going to win the two chamber matches and who's going to win the women's world title match. So I think those matches are going to be terrific. But this feels like the main event of the weekend for me, not just in New Japan. But I think the match I'm most looking forward to is this hair match. So it's not the main event of the show, though. The main event of the show, of course, the IWGP World Heavyweight Title match. It's Tetsuya Naito defending against Sonata. I know that anything can happen and all this stuff. I would be stunned if it was anything except Naito winning. He has basically been advertised in the main event against Jon Moxley for Windy City Riot. They've got this anniversary show coming up. Naito has to hold on to the title here, right? I mean, we tried Sonata as the world champion. It didn't take. We're not going to make that mistake twice in a year, are we, Jeremy? I think this is a win for Naito going home.
They could do Sonata. I don't think they would. I think this is a match to have a match and wrap up Sonata in the upper mid card and just have him in the mid card and figure out what's next for just 5 guys, because they are quickly moving down to just 5 guys at the bottom of the faction list. Yeah,
and I think there's, like I said, shakeups are coming and upheavals coming and all that. You mentioned this is the season finale. It could end with just Sonata being denied, and now he has to go back and look at his faction. It just doesn't seem like any time to switch this. Naito and Moxley is the match, right? You got to do that, and you got to have Naito in the main event of the anniversary show, which isn't like they don't have long to sell tickets to that show. Putting Sonata in the main event when it's proven he doesn't sell tickets makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it's Sonata isn't the guy. And as much as anyone wants to, no one's convincing us he's the guy. Like, that's the thing. There's no fight to this. There's no, there's no pushback to anyone saying, well, Sonata could be the guy. Okay. Like, it's a half-hearted argument to be an advocate.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this sets up a lot of people for a possible run at the New Japan Cup. And, some early contenders for that we've already mentioned. If Finlay isn't the global champion, I would have put him as the favorite to win the thing. If he is the global champion, then maybe not. But you also have Riddle. You have my theory, too, is it could be Shingo Takagi who goes up there, and that's the way to get to Shingo versus Naito, which I still think they want to do in some way. You could even shave Tsuji's head and have him do a run, just say, in this. But, the New Japan Cup is a way to get 2 faction members in a main event without breaking them up either. My other theory on that is that they might do something like they did last year where Shingo wins the thing and says, I'm starting my own faction. I just can't be the number 2 guy anymore.
Sure.
And I've been advocating that for a while for Shingo to go up to Bishamon and said, you guys don't have a leader right now. Come with me. Maybe he goes to Jeff Cobb and says that and takes him away from UE, and that could get to Riddle versus Scott. There's a lot of ways you could do things like this, but that would be
the moment LIJ got the roll call at Wrestle Kingdom. What else is there?
Yeah. And that's kind of the peak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
You've hit the peak. Now you tear it down. So
yeah.
It could be that.
Dunstan says he doesn't think Tsuji can take another loss.
I think he can. I think he'll be fine.
I mean,
that's
the way you
personally
put it
me. I will say the guy that if he's in the New Japan Cup, and there's no guarantee that he is that if Hiromu Takahashi is in the New Japan Cup this year, he's winning the New Japan Cup.
Well, that's another contender, isn't it? Because Hiromu was about the only person in the junior heavyweight division they felt comfortable having wins over heavyweights. And they've done it several times where Hiromu has beaten heavyweights in the New Japan Cup. And if you're going to go with Desperado, and you and I both agree that it's time to go ahead and run with Desperado, you do need to have something for Hiromu to do.
Yes.
And Hiromu, I just said like the never open weight title at some point would be something he could do because, take advantage of the open weight. But New Japan Cup has both juniors and heavies in there. I feel like he should definitely at least make the semifinals, maybe the finals of this thing. You need to do something with Hiromu. He's too charismatic. He's too much of a star. But Desperado needs that run with the junior heavyweight title. So I'm on board with that too. There are a lot of interesting contenders for that New Japan Cup.
The other thing is if you do this, if you have Hiromu looking dominant, going and winning the New Japan Cup, that means in the middle of March, you have found out that one of the 2 main events for Windy City is guaranteed to be a title match. Because if Hiromu wins his match against Mustafa Ali becomes an IWGP title match. If Hiromu or if Naito wins the match, his match against Moxley, because they would face off at Sakura Genesis a week and a half before, and then you could book it. And then once Sakura Genesis is over, you can truly declare which one of these matches is a title match. You can keep the through line of title match versus title match versus title match, but also hit the notes of hitting the title matches organically about the ones that you want to do. If you start putting Hiromu in an IWGP title match and he's no longer in the junior heavyweight division, and then he settles somewhere in the never open weight division, I think that's perfect.
He'll still be a junior because here's the thing. That junior division is as much about height as it is about weight. And I just don't see them making him a long-term heavyweight because he's just small. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with that, what the scale says, but also, I mean, he's good in the junior heavyweight division. He can wrestle all those guys and things, but yeah, he is the one guy who can sort of be larger than that division and move up among the heavyweights sometimes. But, like he couldn't, it would look weird for Hiromu to beat Cobb. It wouldn't look weird for Hiromu to beat Taichi. You know what I mean? Right. Even though Taichi's larger, but not beat a mountain like Cobb. It's a delicate balance. Yeah. It's tricky.
It's all within the organics of the match itself. You can make it work within certain dynamics and certain scenarios, but on a one-to-one where you're like, this guy versus this guy is like, you have to do a little bit more than that. The other one I thought about is like Shota versus Jack Perry could be a never open weight title match in Windy City. You can have a bunch of title matches.
Oh yeah. They do have to do that, don't they? They got to do Shota and Jack at some point. Yeah. Do you think he turns up in Sapporo? Does he take the flight?
Not out of the question. Could cost him the match.
Colin says we can't have Hiromu winning NJC again. Well, I think he means Super Juniors. He wins Super Juniors. Like he wins it near enough every year. Give me something different. He says, yeah, I will agree with you. And Jeremy and I talked a little bit about this beforehand, and Super Juniors is still a couple months away, but we're not sure he's in the tournament this year. We think he might be on to bigger things, but we'll see how. Again, this weekend is going to give us a lot of hints on what they're thinking, and certainly the Cup is going to tell us an awful lot too. So they have to make some changes. They are losing one of their biggest safety blankets in Okada. They've got to look at some new folks, and I feel like Umino is going to be one of them. And, Hiromu, it says something that they sold all those tickets by really only announcing Moxley, Hiromu, Naito. Mustafa Ali has a following in Chicago. Mm-hmm. No question about that. He's part of it. But Hiromu was one of the names they threw up there as come and see this guy. Mm-hmm. And it's a phenomenal advance. That has to tell Bushiroad something, that he's part of that mix of guys that you can draw a house with.
They have the cards in the deck to be successful, and they just gotta put it out there in a way that people are like interested.
Time to shuffle them. Get some.
All right, let's wrap this up, my man. I think we got everything.
Oh man, I can't wait. These two shows are going to be so good this weekend. So we will be back on Sunday. Now, keep in mind, Sunday is a big day for Fight Game Media. Of course, there's going to be all kinds of stuff going on regarding Elimination Chamber. Don't forget the Wrap, by the way, that show. That's a WWE show. It's a fantastic podcast about that. Power Bombshells will be back. They'll have a lot to talk about.
They'll be on earlier in the day before us.
They're keeping this Booker T story alive by telling these women's stories right here. It's very important.
Rachel Rose.
Is, and unfortunately, there's others anyway, they're giving voice to some people who need it. And that's a very important show. It's always worth listening to. And then we will be back at our regular time here on Sunday. So that's 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. And we will break down these 2 nights of New Beginning in Sapporo. We will let Saturday everybody digest everything with Elimination Chamber and this and Collision and everything else. We'll be back on Sunday to break down 2 huge shows.
Can't wait, man. I'll see you in 3 days.
All right. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will talk to you again very soon.